You're listening to the Hypno Fairy Godmother Show with Shirley Yance, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hello, and welcome to the Hypno Fairy Godmother Show. I'm Shirley, clinical hypnotherapist, advocate, and mental health first responder for Whispering Zen Hypnotherapy. Thank you for coming to the show today, where you can come as you are, but leave as you want to be. Do you wish you could more freely enjoy a new habit, or just get back to feeling more like you? Then let's talk. And although I specialize working with the LGBTQIA community, I welcome and work with everyone. If you need help, I'm here for you. So book an appointment today at whisperingzenhypnotherapy.com. And today I have a little announcement before we get going. As of September 20th or September 13th, you can find me live on the Hypno Fairy Godmother Facebook page. So it's Hypno Fairy Godmother Radio Show on Facebook. It's still going to be at 3 o'clock. It's just you'll be able to find me there live, and you'll be able to get the repeats too. But you'll be able to just log into there where you usually find everything and see me live. So now let's get going. Before we get too far, let's start out the show like I love to start out the show. So make sure you're in that safe place. No driving, no working on anything. Just, you need to be in that nice, safe, calm place. So what I want you to do is I want you to take a gigantic deep breath and exhale with a smile. And the next thing I want you to do, which is part number 2, is wiggle your toes. Come on, wiggle your toes. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Inside your shoes, outside your shoes. It's kind of warm today, so I'm going barefooted. Most people that know me would not, they'd go, yeah, we know. Now, wiggle your buns. Come on, wiggle your buns. Squeeze them in, because you can't do this without smiling. You can't ask somebody to do this without smiling. Oh, good. Now, we're going to take one more deep breath. And we're going to exhale with a great affirmation. And I like to use, we got this, or things are great today. I'm going to be just fine. Because sometimes you're just trying to make it through the day. Sometimes you're just trying to make it through the next hour. So give yourself something to work on. And a great affirmation is one of those things. Now, if you've got an extra few seconds, roll your ankles, move your legs, roll your shoulders, your neck, roll it around. And in just like a minute and a half, you have now relaxed everything from your head to your toes, or like I get to say, from your toes to your nose. So if you could do this at least once or twice a day, you're going to feel great. I know you are. And today I would like to thank Inner Fanatic Digital Marketing for sponsoring the show. They are the internet fanatics, upgrading performance online since 1999. Inner Fanatic will be there, and they have the answer for over 20 years. Inner Fanatic is the reliable source for websites and digital marketing. Inner Fanatic runs lean and delivers high value, and that's how they keep happy, successful customers. That's Inner Fanatic. So find the internet fanatics on innerfanatic.com. Now, I've touched on this before, but this week I think we're going to talk about how to make your office a more inviting place for your LGBTQIA employees or customers. A lot of things, can be applied to other underrepresented groups too, but I think we're going to concentrate on this particular group because this is my people. Historically, most people that fall under the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community have been ridiculed, thought of in derogatory manners, and have been pushed aside as abnormal or mentally ill. And for some time, for some places that's changed and evolved, but for others, even in most of our business communities, it hasn't changed all that much quite yet. So the reason for this show is to explain some of those crazy definitions, to members of the business community that they still use and why maybe they shouldn't be using them. And yes, some of this is total political correctness, but to be blunt, a lot of it is just common courtesy. And if you think that you're above all these homophobic old time comments, we still hear them on a daily basis. And it's important, even if you're not using them, that maybe you correct people that are. So we all have realized and unrealized biases and prejudices. And it could come from when you were raised or how you were raised. We learn these things from our families and our communities. I grew up in a place where, the worst thing that could happen was being that way. And in my formative years, I heard every derogatory word and phrase that you can say about a gay person from both family and the community. So it's a matter of how you grew up by what you've heard and how you've dealt with it. And this is not to shame anybody, but maybe think twice when a client comes into your business, or you have an employee that might be LGBTQIA, that may not fit into your norms. It just takes a second and can save you from huge miscommunications. It could cost you a client, or it could cost you a great employee. And most businesses would never want that. So if you do have clients that come into your office for services, let's get one thing out of the way. If you don't know what to call a person, ask them. I know it's crazy, but when I first began dealing with the holistic health community about 20 years ago, I added a line underneath all the give me your information stuff, and it actually said, "What do you like to be called?" And part of the reason I did this was for my LGBTQ friends or clients. But part of the reason I did this is whether you're gay or straight, most of the people I know for friends and family don't use their first name. They never use their legal name. They either use a nickname or they use their middle name. And so knowing what people like to be called is an easy step, and it does stop a lot of the miscommunication. I know that if I called my wife by her legal name, she would never answer me because that's her I'm in trouble name. And that's what usually happens when somebody calls you by your first name if you're not used to using it. And for those that need to know, the LGBTQ is an acronym, and it's meant to encompass a whole bunch of diverse sexualities and genders. Folks often refer to the Q, standing in for queer, but for some people it's also questioning, and it's used as a gigantic umbrella term, which a whole bunch of identities are underneath. And this is helpful because lesbian, gay, and bisexual aren't the only marginalized sexualities, and transgender isn't the only gender identity. In fact, there are so many of both. And I'm not going to go over all of the groups, because that would take a whole nother day of all of the breaking down all of the different identities that are out there. If you do, however, are interested, email me or contact me. You can do it at hypnofairygodmother@yahoo.com, and I will send you the list or a list of a breakdown if you feel that you might be able to use them, or it might be able to help you maybe understand a little bit more how many sub modalities there are and how many sub identities there are. There's a lot, but each one is important and special to that person that's using them. So let's get down to a little bit of fun. Well, for me, it's a little bit of fun. And you don't have to take notes on this. You can just think it. This is also one of those things that I'm going to give you some time to think in between each one, but it's also available and will be available on the Facebook page just give you a chance to think about these little questions and think about how you would answer these questions. And that's okay because nobody's going to know what you're thinking. One of the nice things about you being there where you're at and me being here, nobody's going to know. So, for this first part, just think about this for just a second. So, when was the first time that you remember learning that people were lesbian, gay, bisexual, or queer? Where did you get most of the influence of your initial impressions or understandings of lesbian, gay, transgender, or queer people? Did you get it from your family? Maybe friends, TV, movies, maybe your church? When was the first time you remember learning that some people are transgender? And where did most of the influence of your initial impressions or understandings of transgender people come from? Again, family, friends, TVs, movies, church, organizations. And how have your impressions or understandings of LGBTQ, that's the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer and questioning people, how has that changed or evolved through your lifetime? And the last one is, what is something that you're still processing or unlearning regarding transgender or gender queer identities? These are just things for you to think about. And it's not right or wrong. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just things for maybe you to think about and maybe go, I never thought about it that way. And for an extra set of questions, if you really want to blow your mind, replace LGBTQ with any other marginalized community and ask yourself those questions. Hmm. And things have changed so much when I was in school. Like I said, you never showed that you might have been different than anybody else, and you absolutely didn't want to be labeled. But now it's important for some people to be labeled so they can feel connected. And isn't that what people want? You know, um, People want to feel connected, and whether it's through a label, whether it's through a group, so where we didn't want to be labeled, now it's so important, and I understand that now. For a while I was like, why so many labels? But now I get it. It's just a connection. um One of my favorite things though is to hear straight people say that children seeing gay people on, in the community or on TV is going to turn them gay. Well, guess what? I grew up watching straight people having straight relationships my whole life. Never worked. Sorry, doesn't work the other way either. So when I'm going through these things, I embrace the 51-100 rule. So, whatever definition that you use for something, 51% will agree with you, whereas again, 51% might totally disagree with you. That's why definitions are important. Again, ask a person what they like to be called, or how they like to be identified. Right now, a lot of people will put their pronouns on something, and whether they consider themselves he or him, she or her, or maybe they or them. These are important. and has to do with somebody's personal identity. You wouldn't want to be misidentified, much less anybody else would either. So here's a few do's and don'ts in the, that might help you out. And these aren't written in stone. These aren't, you don't have to use these. Yes, some of these are very politically correct, but they give you something to think about. And that's all I'm trying to do, is give you little things to think about. So, first, avoid saying gay. You know, no, avoid, you can say gay. Sorry, I totally misread that. Avoid saying homosexual. You can say gay, but homosexual connotates a medical, it was used as a medical term, and it was used as a derogatory medical term. And so, if you need to use the word gay, use the word gay, but don't use the word homosexual. Instead of saying hermaphrodite, please don't ever use the word hermaphrodite. Use intersex. Hermaphrodite is again a stigmatizing term that is an it's just a horrible word that was used in the medical community. And it can be hurtful more than most words. You know, um, Instead of using born male or born female, which only depicts what happens at the time of birth, used assigned. So somebody was assigned male or male at birth, female bodied, male bodied, little things like that. We just had um, a baby shower in my family, and we sent everything in neutral colors. And it's not that the parents don't know the sex of the child, it's that we wanted we didn't want to be the, oh well, it's this child that's going to be born in, it's not like it's female born or male. um we didn't want to work into that stigmatizing thing. you know we're the neutral people. So, when you used bodied, that's fine. People, when this baby's born, it's going to be assigned one sex or the other. Okay, what if, they change their mind? Then you're like stuck with it. So use your words carefully. Um, Try not to use a gay or a transgender. Try a gay or transgender person. Gay and transgender are adjectives and describe a person or a group, which is very, very important. Don't use it when referring to people. It are things. This is my biggest, hugest pet peeve. Don't call somebody an it. It doesn't, it is a thing. It is not ever, ever a person. You can use they, you can use them, maybe, depending on, the pronouns that they use, but don't ever refer to somebody as an it. Try not to say things are normal, because that implies that people are abnormal. And this applies to both, gay and straight people. Nobody wants to think that they're abnormal. So try not to use that. Try not to say both, because that implies both genders. You can say that there are two genders, that they're all genders. We don't not break it down to just two. And this is kind of controversial with some people, that they feel that there are only two genders. But in this community, you know, we just say, all genders, because all works out and all helps with that umbrella that we talked about. So instead of saying both, use the umbrella and say all. Instead of maybe using ladies and gentlemen, try everyone, folks, honored guests. I know that's getting nitpicky, but if you want to be more inviting, you need to be more inviting. And I know this is going to drive everybody crazy with this one, but try not to use mailmen, firemen, policemen, people of all genders do these jobs. Mail clerk, firefighter, police officer. Like I said, some of these fall under the political correctness, and you will hate the fact that I'm asking you to say them. But I feel that these are important for you to do this. So, the 5150, you may not have agreed with everything I said. You may have agreed with 51%. You may have disagreed with 51%. I'm just giving you, like I said, their guidelines, their suggestions. They're not written in stone, but you need to think about them before you say something, because just take a second. Just take a second. These next couple of things you may not think that they have to do with businesses, but the way you react to, they may help the way you react to clients or employees, and maybe help you understand where they actually come from, which is an important thing. So let's talk about coming out. Yes, that tends to be the big thing that people don't, especially cisgender or straight people, tend to not quite understand what's involved in this, because surprising to many people, this is not a one-time thing, but a lifelong adventure in terror. Because you don't just come out once, you come out over and over and over again with every person that you want to know, that you want to know that you're gay, bisexual, transgender, or whatever. And with those people, you need to predetermine how they're going to react, and if they're going to tell somebody, or how, is this going to be a good thing or a bad thing? But the most important factor when somebody's doing this is their personal protection and their personal safety. No one should ever be made to come out. The most important factors when somebody comes out is their personal safety, their comfort, their trust, and their readiness. If you force somebody out, that could traumatize them forever. You don't have the right to do that. Nobody ever has the right to do that. And this is one of the most important things. So when you're thinking about, a gay person coming out, remember the terror you felt when you had to come out as straight. So think about how many people that you know. And then think about how big your family is. Then add all those up, and then back to how they would react. I had a huge family. I have a huge family. So for me, I started on the outside, and I slowly worked my way into those that were closest to me. And it took forever. But I was being cautious, as most people are. And to be honest, there are still people that I haven't told and won't tell because of the reaction that I know that they'll have. Now, a lot of straight people can understand this, because think about, in your family, there are always those people that you don't tell a secret or an important thing that's happening in your life, because you know how they're going to react. So think about what you're not telling somebody in your family, and understand how important it is. Sometimes we don't tell everybody either. So, and the most important thing to think about when somebody comes out is you may be the first person, friend, client, or employee that they actually tell anybody. So, this is a big deal and can be a much bigger deal. Because when you're coming out, it's the process by which someone accepts who they are and their gender identity or their sexual orientation. And they're willing to share this with others, which goes back to don't ever, ever force somebody to come out. Recently, I saw a story where um, people were using different apps to out people, and the the trauma that it was causing people because maybe their family didn't know or their employer didn't know. In many states, still, you can be fired from your job if they find out that you're gay. You can lose your house if they find out that you're gay. Um, these are important things to think about because you could be doing trauma. You could have somebody lose everything because of your selfishness. And yeah, I'm going to call it like it is. It is complete selfishness. And know that, some people may be out in certain circumstances and spaces, but in other circumstances, and you know, they may tell some friends and they may tell a coworker, but at their family, not even. And this is up to them. Like I said, the most important thing when a person comes out is, their safety, their comfort, their trust, and their readiness. And I think their readiness is probably one of the most important. So we're going to come over and we're going to do a little do's and don'ts. And, these are just little do's and don'ts that are going to help you if you don't understand. Don't say, I always knew, and downplay the significance of them sharing this with you. It's kind of, deflating, but know that this is a sign that they trust you and that person trusts you. Don't go telling everybody and bragging, look, I got this new gay friend and I've got this new trans friend. Check to see how confidential this information is. Do other people know, or is this a secret that you're supposed to keep? Don't forget that they are still the person that you knew before and that you loved before. They haven't changed a bit just because they told you. But remember that their gender or sexuality is just one dimension of who they are. So nobody's changed. They're still the same person. It's just this one little bit of information that you may now know about them. Don't ask probing questions or cross personal barriers that you would have never crossed before. You know where that personal line is. Don't cross that personal line. But you are allowed to show interest and curiosity about the part that they're sharing with you. So if they bring up something, you're allowed to go, oh, and maybe ask a follow up question. But don't go, asking questions that cross the line because that's just going to make everybody feel uncomfortable. Don't assume why they're coming out to you. You don't know why they're coming out to you, but ask them how to best support them. Think about that, how best to support them. That's why you should never assume. Just go, well, they're coming out to me because you don't know. Maybe they trust you more than they trust anyone in the world. And think of how special that is that they actually trust you enough to tell you this huge thing that usually sits on your chest. And you go through every time you come out, you go through little panic attacks. You go through you talk about it over and over in your head. Should I do it? Should I not do it? Like I said, it's living in terror every single time you tell a person. Some people in my family handled it really well. Some people did not. It's going to be like that for everyone. But, don't tell other people. You will never have, I'm guessing, I know that I told people that you never have permission to tell other people about my personal life without me telling them first or without me agreeing that if the subject came up, just say yes or no. and don't do any follow-up. That's a good thing to think about. Um, what I love is there's like this little diagram that I don't really have for you, but I can get to you, like the other ones that are called the gingerbread person. And the gingerbread person helps to understand the genders and sexuality and the parts that make up both. And I only point this out, when you see a person, there's so much more to them that, that you're going to see when they walk in. And whether it's an employee or whether it's a client or whether maybe it's just a friend, you know, that what you see on the outside may not be going on the inside. And this is super important. With just gender identity, people often think of social roles and gender norms, with personality traits and expectations baked into those things, with someone they might identify with. So, gender identity, you look at somebody that presents female, you already have things in your mind that their social roles and their personality traits, and you have all these expectations already built in. You haven't talked to them. You haven't acknowledged what's going on. You haven't asked what's going on. With gender expression, people often think of hairstyles and grooming, maybe if they wear makeup or type of clothes, maybe mannerisms or, other things you see on the outside that people generally use to describe different ways of how our expression shows up. So if you're, born female, but you enjoy wearing pants or you enjoy wearing suits, maybe you were born male, but you enjoy wearing skirts or dresses. Um, don't assume because of their gender expression. You still don't know what's going on inside of them. That's just what you're seeing on the outside. Then there's the anatomical sex. And the first thing people think of are the reproductive organs, genitals, things like that. But lots of things make up what we call sex, including body hair, your hip to shoulder ratio, your chromosomes, maybe the pitch of your voice. All of these things are depicting varying degrees that someone might, show, they might have these traits as opposite to a sex that the person was assigned at birth. So, which is generally solely determined, when you're born, then they will assign you. But, with anatomical sex, other things can apply. And, you know, it's once again looking at not what you assume the person is or how that person identifies and how that person feels inside. So we're going to fill in some blanks in the attraction section. And people often experience or don't experience attraction in different ways. So people may find attraction to the same sex, the opposite sex. There are different ways of attraction, and it can be romantic, just strictly romantic, or just strictly sexual. Some people experience both, some only one, and some neither. And within those experiences of attraction, we often focus on the gender of others that we're attracted to. For example, someone may be attracted to people who identify with a lot of femaleness or womanness, but express a lot of masculinity. So let's say that you're female and you are attracted to people that have that womanness or that femaleness, but they express a lot of masculinity. That doesn't mean that they're attracted to men. That means that they're attracted to that person or what that person projects. With gender identity, people often think of social norms and social roles and personality traits and expectations that are baked into those little things. because, the lines indicate that there are so many different potential womanness and manliness, you know, which is how that person identifies. With gender expression, people often think of hairstyles and grooming, you know, and usually they generally use this to describe different ways our expressions show up. So I wanted to go back to expressions because, the way a person expresses himself on the outside has zero to do with how they express themselves on the inside. And a lot of that is stereotypes. A lot of all of this last part has to do with stereotypes. If you see a person, let's say me, and you see me with pink hair and maybe a little bit of makeup, you make the assumption that I project myself as female. But you don't know what's going on inside. You don't know by looking at me who I might be attracted to, how I might feel that my pronouns are, who I'm attracted to. Again, so don't assume these things. The worst thing that you can do is assume that you know how a person's feeling. So, and with identity terminology, not everybody's going to agree with what I just said. Not everybody's going to agree with you, which is why asking people, asking people is, is so crucial. And when in doubt, stick to adjectives, not nouns. Like as in she is a blonde, not she's blonde. We use things that, remember, adjectives describe a person, nouns describe, you know, the actual person. So, the is, yeah, I almost messed that up. We don't want to do that. Um, so it goes back to just asking that person. You don't have to ask them who they identify. You don't have to ask them who they're attracted to. You never ask somebody, especially when you're just getting to know them. You're basically just asking in the beginning the simple question of, what do you like to be called? The rest of it can come up later. Don't ever assume that because somebody uses a male or female nickname or a male or female middle name that they identify a certain way. Don't assume because of the way a person identifies or doesn't identify that that they're gay or straight. I know a lot of manly looking females, or maybe a little more feminine or womanly men that are completely cisgender, which I've been using cisgender. If you don't know what that is the new term for being straight. Um, and a lot of these things apply. So don't assume that somebody may be LGBTQIA when their outside doesn't match what you think their inside is. There's a lot of, um, I heard a couple people talking last week at an event, and they were talking about, gender norms and how you could always tell. Well, in the olden days, you couldn't then either. But now just, show some respect. So, like I said, remember that for your business, there are things that you can do to reduce the stigma of employees. You can reduce the stigma of clients that may be coming in. You can make things better for both. Um, and I think that this is going to help everybody involved. I really do. So we're going to go back over a couple things that we went over last week with the Center for Workplace and Mental Health. Suggests that organizations that strive to create a culture in which the mention of depression, anxiety, post-trauma, and common illness become as mentionable as diabetes, hypertension, and migraines. So if somebody in your employee is LGBTQ and they're having a lot of problems with it, or they look nervous all the time, um, you know, it's important for you to have people in your office that they can go to, that they have a mental health counselor, or you have programs set up, tailor programs and approaches to your company and culture for existing those strengths, and keep pushing forward and pushing forward. Mention your commitment, you know, that every time you talk about your commitment to employees, you include your commitment to helping people that may have mental health issues or depression, or people, and especially people that are LGBTQ. When a employee knows that you support them, whether they come out or not, but if they are having a harassment problem, if they are having a problem with um, managers, things like that, that, they do have somebody to go to. Train your leaders. If you have team leaders, train them to be sensitive of how employees identify themselves and show respect at all times. If you have a trainer or a manager that disrespects an employee because of their sexual orientation, you need to handle this, because you may lose the best employee that you have. And that you never want to do. So take into consideration that by the callousness of somebody else, you can lose one of the best people that you may have. And be welcoming, to, if you need to make accommodations, if you need to move somebody, if you need to help somebody out, train your managers to respond appropriately. If there's a conflict, don't let the conflict go on. This is your responsibility. It's your responsibility as an owner, as maybe a business manager, as an HR person, because what you're trying to do and what you need to do is make that person feel as comfortable as possible. And this not only has to do with the LGBTQ community, it has to do with any marginalized community. All of these things, like I said, can be used towards the LGBT community, but can also be used towards any marginalized community. Anybody that comes in that feels maybe out of place, or they look around and they don't see anybody that looks like them. It's important for you to be accommodating. It's important for you to take some interest, maybe ask if there's anything that you can do to make them feel more comfortable. You can tell when an employee feels uncomfortable. You can tell when a person feels uncomfortable, a friend, a family member. Do what you can to make them feel better. Even if you just walk by and say, if you need to talk, I'm here. You don't understand how wonderful that is and how special you feel when somebody takes an interest in you. And you don't ever have to take them up on it. I'm not saying that, if you are LGBTQ, that every person that says if you want to talk, that you have to take them up on it. But remember how that feels to just have that person that might listen if you do have a problem, or might listen if you're having a bad day and won't judge you. Like I said, these days, in certain states, people can still be fired for, being LGBTQ. They can still lose everything. Don't be a part of that losing everything for somebody. Be a friend. If you have to be a manager, be a manager. But, most of all, if you can, be a friend. By doing these things, you're commit to learn, commit to respecting your employees. Make everyone in your business more comfortable and inviting. It's vital to the overall personal wellness. This also has to do with mental health. If a person is feeling panicky every day that somebody's going to find out about them, their personal life, if somebody's feeling panicky all day that, they're going to get harassed or teased, think of what that does to their mental health. So a lot of this also has to do with mental health. When you go through the coming out process, your brain is just freaking out. When you're going through a work situation, or, a client comes in, they're thinking, you know, what if, is this going to work? What if this doesn't happen? What if we don't get along? What if, the world of what ifs. So the more that you can make life accommodating, just making them feel better, it's one little thing that you can do that will also help their mental health, you know. Um, Teach them if they're having those panic attacks daily, teach them the 3-minute breathing exercise. If you see somebody, you don't have to ask them what the problem is. Just go, would you like to talk to our mental health person? Or, would you like to go into another room and maybe I can teach you a breathing exercise? Somebody actually did that for me at one of the places I worked. They pulled me aside and said, I'm not sure what the issue is, but we need to get a handle on it, and let's try breathing first. Okay, I'll try breathing first. Um, and it helped. So know that you can help your employees with just the 3-minute breathing thing. You don't want to have them do a body scan because that might look a little strange with them laying on the floor doing a body scan. But over, the last year or so, I've taught you a lot of tips and tricks that you can teach your employees, or you can teach your managers to teach your employees. Um, if you have a friend that decides to come out to you, or a family member, and you can tell that they're going through anxiety, you can go, just stop and breathe. I actually had a family member that looked at me and just went, just stop and breathe for a second, because I was so nervous to actually say the words. And the first time you say the words, you think that it's going to get better. But each time, like I said, each time you come out, and if you have to do that at an office, and you have to do that in a social situation, really doesn't get a whole lot easier. So I recommend that you always, always, always take, take control of your mental state. Be aware. Be aware of where you're at. Be aware of how you feel. If you do need some help, there are counselors. I actually specialize in working with the LGBTQIA community. I help you if you're having a problem and you don't know how to react to coming out, or you don't know how, you need somebody to go with you when they're coming out. I've been there to hold somebody's hand because they weren't sure how the person was going to react. That's fine. That's, sometimes a person's not sure of how they really feel, or they're trying to pick a pronoun, or they're trying to pick, am I really LGBTQIA or not? These are things that I help people with every day. So I want you to know that, I'm always here for you. I am always, always here for you. So once again, always take care of your mental state. Always check and always know that I'm here for you. But again, I would like to thank, once again, Interfanatic Digital Marketing, upgrading performance online since 1999. Interfanatic will be there and have the answers. Like I said, for over 20 years, Interfanatic is the reliable source for websites and digital marketing. Find the Internet Fanatics at Interfanatic. So thank you once again for listening. It has been my pleasure to even be a small part of your journey, and I hope it's been calming and soothing. And mostly, I hope that wherever you are, you're leaving a little better than you were before. So, I'm Shirley, clinical hypnotherapist, activist, and mental health first responder at Whispering Zen Hypnotherapy. I work with my clients and maybe you. We find a team to find the best way to bring you back to being the best you possible without the fear of a habit or the pain or the mental stress or the physical stress. And I work online so I can be wherever you are. Hypnosis isn't for everyone. I understand that. So let's just see if we can work together. Again, I'm Shirley, clinical hypnotherapist. And if you'd like, book a consultation today at whisperingzenhypnotherapy.com. And it has been my sincere, real pleasure to help you today. And I want you to, one more time, take a nice deep breath, especially because I know this was a lot of information. Hold it and exhale with a smile. Thank you for tuning in. Remember to tell your friends all about the show, and I will see you next week.
You're listening to the Hypno Fairy Godmother Show with Shirley Yance, only on LA Talk Radio.